about that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the fact.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday, Schadenfreude Friday, for all of those people out there who are paying attention to the news cycle. I woke up and it was nearly Christmas morning, so
Expect that to happen a lot for some reason. We're not sure why.
a lot.
Think of it as a emoji, right? Like a bam emoji. Like you're going to say something that's like totally poignant and drives home something, and then all of a sudden that comes up. It's like bang emoji.
That's exactly right. So you'll see that quite a bit today, but I want to make sure that everyone understands. I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I cannot speak for all 200,000 American families who have lost someone to COVID. I can't even speak for everyone in my family, even though we've lost some dear family members to COVID. I can only speak for myself, and totally schadenfreude today, and I am dancing. So before we get into all of that and the happy news, Andy, how are you doing? I see you're wearing your victory attire. How's that going for you?
Well, pretty good. It was kind of it's a bittersweet week, right? Because we've got, as you know, I'm a big sports fan, pretty much across the board. Right? Like my Steelers are obviously my favorite NFL team. The other sports are a little bit more towards the local teams. Like I'm a big Raptors fan, as you can see by the hat behind me, and I'm a big Blue Jays fan. And of course, this week the Blue Jays played Tampa Bay, right? And it didn't go well. All the strategy that they tried to employ by making their number one pitcher play in the second game to try to gain an advantage and win game 2 and game 3, and he came out there and started throwing flounders, and by the end of the second inning it was already 7-0 and pretty much the end of the Blue Jays season. So I was a little sad for the little time, but the upside is, hey, Steelers are 3-0. It's all good.
So you just move from one sport to the next and you're okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. So, all right.
Keep doing that. I want one.
Yeah. So for anyone who happens to be tuning in and this is your first time watching it, oh man, it's Friday. I haven't had enough coffee, but we are live, obviously. So if you want to weigh in on comments, questions, you want to tell us we're absolutely wrong. Well, Andy's never wrong, but if you want to tell me I'm wrong, feel free to weigh in. Pachink. There it is. Yay! So this is
what we got to do. Emoji that moves its mouth when you speak.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I want a unicorn, a little rainbow unicorn. So what is happening is we stream through Zoom, and Zoom is having issues this morning because Zoom cannot, for some reason, detect my camera this morning. So I'm hobbling along. But because we have this really nice software, you may not need to see me anyway. So let's go ahead and get into the program this morning. So before we get to the big news, which I'm sure you're waking up to, Karma may be working its comeuppance at the end of this week. So this for me is a happy Friday, and I want to start with a gentleman by the name of Bob Murray. Bob Murray, you may recall, he's the CEO of Murray Energy out of it's based in Ohio, but he's got mines in Ohio as well as West Virginia. And Bob Murray was on the forefront as the CEO of this company in fighting benefits for miners who had black lung. So if you're not aware of what black lung is, when you work in a mine, you're breathing in all of that. Even though you've got some protective gear, years and years of doing that kind of work will damage your lung tissue, and you can't breathe, you can't talk. And I remember one leftist activist was out there a couple of years ago in a march, and he was like, yeah, let's go ahead and march and do the chants. And they had to look at him, and he's like, why is no one chanting? And they had to explain to him, well, they can't. They can't talk. They can't do any of that sort of thing because they've all got black lung. So it was an educational moment for everyone who's trying to understand what people are going through. And I will tell you, in West Virginia, my experience with West Virginia, when I was licensed to do insurance consulting, I picked West Virginia specifically because West Virginia is one of those states, particularly in the southern part of West Virginia, you cannot buy insurance even if you had cash. And that is because even under ACA, you can't force a private for-profit entity to sell their product in a location. So what did the insurance companies like Blue Cross and Aetna and all of these companies know that the rest of us didn't know? Well, when you do mountaintop mining and all of these other activities, you're going to kill people. So they knew that it was not profitable to offer insurance in the southern portions of West Virginia. So you could only, yeah, if you get sick, you're going to have a problem, right? So that is where West Virginia, I think, for me, kind of holds a special place. So for those who don't remember Murray and his Murray Energy Company, he's environmental offenses and employee-related offenses. He had a penalty total of $21 million. Number of records of violations was 1,668. Employment-related offenses against union and his own people, there were only 2, but the environmental offenses against the community and the state, over 13. And we know during this time that the EPA had been gutted largely and really wasn't able to do much in the way of holding them accountable, but they still managed to get him on a couple of these. So what happened was Bob Murray now says that he has black lung, and so he filed for benefits. And what I thought was interesting in this particular piece with Mr. Murray is he contradicted himself. So publicly he's saying, oh, no, there's no such thing as black lung because it'll cost him money if he admits it. But on his own application for benefits through the federal government, he cites black lung. So here's a guy who, I'm just saying.
I love that.
Yeah, so here's a guy who is more than happy to deny benefits for families who desperately need it. More than happy to call you a liar to your face, more than happy to take his profits. But now that he himself has allegedly black lung, he's going to go ahead and take that socialism. So y'all know where he lives.
Well,
right?
he got it from eating too much ketchup, right? So it's a different reason.
Sure he did. Sure he did. So
Yeah. Oh, by the way, here.
yeah, there you go. We're twinsies, yay! So all right. So the other big news, and this came out yesterday. We saw that what's her face? Dang it, her name's gone. Hicks. Hicks came
Opie,
down.
Opie.
Yeah, Hope Hicks. Which, by the way, I love her new hair color. She should have done her eyebrows at the same time. But
Yes, it's a COVID blonde.
yeah, so she came down with COVID, and we know that she travels extensively with the president and all of the cabinet and all of this. So now, dun, 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 yeah, so here's Trump's tweet. And of course, I love my snarky American family because they wasted no time in responding to Trump's tweet about testing positive. And I thought it was hilarious. This is just one. Twitter and check out the responses to Trump's tweet. I'm not sure how he tested positive since COVID is a hoax. That's kind of interesting to me. But yeah, so apparently Trump has caught the hoax. My camera just refuses to stay on. Come on.
Well, it's okay. It's all right. You're showing a video right now, so you're good. It's on loop.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait. So Lee, good morning, Lee. Good morning, Mike. So Lee asks, how does the top man at Murray Energy get a condition caused by breathing in coal dust for years in the mine? Well, according to Mr. Murray, that he has spent hours and hours every day for 63 years in the mine. That's what he wrote. I will say that when you lie on a federal application, not only is your claim denied, but you could face charges. So maybe the law will apply to Mr. Murray. Maybe it won't. Doesn't seem to, but
It does. It seems to be a precedent that it didn't seem to apply to him over his entire career.
that's exactly right. And that's kind of the problem. So I am also remiss because I'm so distracted this morning. Here are all the links for information that we're talking about today. So follow up, read it for yourself, all of these good things, because our job here is just to highlight some of these topics. Hopefully you will do the research for yourself. That is the goal here. Think for yourself, critical thinking. So on the Trump thing, this I thought was amazing because we had this lead up where Trump himself is already calling into question okay, let me make sure I get this right. He's okay with absentee mail-in ballots. He's not okay with mail-in ballots, which are identical except for that one word, absentee. So he has been talking about for weeks how the whole program of mail-in ballots is just wrought with corruption. It's not wrought with corruption. And in fact, his own administration, CIA, FBI, all of these people are saying, no, this is not. You're not going to have that corruption, right?
So you're saying that he doesn't believe in mail-in ballots, but he does believe in absentee ballots?
Yeah, you know why? You know what the difference is?
But doesn't that make him absent-minded?
Yeah, well, we knew that. We knew that. So, you reminded me. One of okay, allegedly, and this is where I need the picture of the bird here, but allegedly, when someone of advanced age who has a weight issue and allegedly
You don't have to be kind, Carrie.
I'm trying not to get sued.
When a president is a fat fucker.
Yeah. So that, and there are eyewitness accounts allegedly of cocaine and snorting Adderall that gives you 4 high risk factors for the fake illness. So everyone's who isn't talking about this snorting of Adderall and cocaine What they are talking about is what happens if the president steps down? What happens if he is unable to fulfill his duties? So we all know that under the 25th Amendment that Pence could step in. And so with some of the biggest searches right now on Google is how does the order of succession go? So goes Trump, Pence, Pelosi, and then what's his face, who's head of the Senate? Grassley? Chuck Grassley?
Oh, Chuck Grassley, yes.
Yeah. So that's how it goes. But wait.
Wow, that's a hell of a lineup, isn't it?
So, like, we're screwed either way.
I mean, all four of those people at recess got picked last.
Right? That's exactly right. Oh, so Lee says he needs to see some independent medical evaluation on that. Well, Lee, you're in luck because we happen to have the letter from Trump's doctor right here. So Trump's doctor says that he is just fine and he's able to fulfill his duties. So remember I just mentioned the 25th? The doctor right here in his last paragraph went, no, he's fine. He can fulfill his duties. So there you go, Lee. There's your totally impartial, independent.
My doctor, he sent me a letter.
Right, exactly. So I'm not trying to be, rude or flippant a little bit. And like I said, I cannot speak for everyone else. I can only speak for myself. And there you go.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah. So that was the song that I was thinking of this morning when I saw the news about the diagnosis. But then, okay, so when we talk about contact tracing, and this is where Nurse Deb would come in, and you just had an issue with this yourself, Andy. So if you have Hope Hicks and Trump and Melania, that's a really big circle here. So that is the entire White House staff. Hope Hicks was at the debate. So what happens behind the scenes in the debate is typically everybody's very cordial with each other. So I'm pretty sure that Hope was over in Biden's camp, shaking hands, chit-chatting, doing all of that sort of thing. So all of those folks now are called into question. Hey, we need to quarantine you. So the circle just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I would say everybody in the White House, all the staff, they are all now under quarantine, all their families. Do you think, Andy, that they're going to get the same care and attention, like the cook or the Secret Service agent or all of these people and their families? Are they going to get the same time, care, and attention?
Well, probably not. I would say the one person that does is the person responsible for delivering McDonald's to the Oval Office. I'm a pacifist. Right? I don't believe in violence of any kind. I don't own any weapons. That might be as much to don't hurt myself, but I've always been that way. I've never wished harm on any human being in my life, like physical harm, but I'm willing to make an exception in this case.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where I think between Bob Murray and POTUS, I'm gonna have to go to confession because I'm enjoying this way too much. You should not wish ill on others, but I'm like, welcome to the party that the rest of us get to deal with, right? So I know so many people who've gotten laid off because of COVID. I know businesses that are going under because Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all the people in Congress didn't see fit to fund the states and local governments. They only funded just the top tier federal stuff and only partially. So we are all being affected in so many ways that did not have to happen. So yeah, of course, let them get it. Let them get it. I want to see it happen.
Sure, absolutely. Like, if they think that's okay,
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with that. You know, some of them will survive. Hopefully, you know, kind of conflicted here.
And that is the whole nature of Schadenfreude, right? It's bad. Jeez, oh Pete. This is a sign. This is a sign. So for those who are oblivious to the background behind me, there's a ton of boxes back here. And I'm supposed to be moving them. Instead, I'm here with Andy. So I think this is karma coming for me today. But so what happens with if Trump is going to be replaced as the nominee? So the RNC, just like the DNC, at any time, even after they have had their convention, anytime they could pick a new nominee. So this whole idea that we're stuck with Biden and Trump is ridiculous. It does not have to happen. So this is from Ballotopedia, and I posted the link so you can go out and read it for yourself. And they actually flow into the RNC's rules, so you can link there and read all the legalese there too. So what happens if they choose to fill the vacancy by a majority vote of their members? So here's some information. Their playbook. So what they do is they have a number of electors, and those electors can get together on Zoom, virtual, whatever, and they've got to give a 5-day notice, and each one of those electors can cast a vote. The way with Trump as a Republican, well, that's a lie. You don't have to. The DNC again could do the same thing with Biden. They don't have to take Biden. They never did. They chose to. So here are the rules. And then the other part of this I think is pretty interesting is this is not the first time it's come up. In 2016, they had this panic mode when Trump became the presumptive nominee, where they had already gone out and Rule 9 and had their debates and everything else. So in 2016, they were contemplating going this route to get rid of Trump as their nominee. And what was interesting to me is, like all rules, and we've discussed it many times here on this program, there's the written rule and the unwritten rule. And it says right here, under could Rule 9 be used to remove a nominee? Two schools of thought. One says no, and the other says maybe. So this ultimately comes down to a matter of interpretation. As in all things, the unwritten rule, what the rule actually says is less important than what a majority of the RNC's members interpret it to say. So on the RNC, those voting members, if you have like a fascist like Tom Cotton, obviously he's going to say, no, hold the line. But then you might have some more pragmatic capitalists who go, wait a second, Trump is really bad for my investments and whatever the hell else they're worried about, because it's not people. They could, in fact, replace Trump at any time. It's just a matter of political will. So I thought that was really camera. So go out and check that out and look at it. Look at it for yourselves, because they have every opportunity, not just with the president serving right now, and you have that succession with Pence and Pelosi and everything else, but for the upcoming election, they could switch gears. Might be in some serious trouble, because the entire DNC platform and Biden's platform so far has been not Trump. Well, if he's not running against Trump, how do you switch gears that quickly?
Yeah, but the other thing you got to remember is a couple of days ago, they did a debate. They were on the same stage together.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I talked to Dylan about this when there was a possibility when we were talking about where we were people in my family were getting tested, and it takes a good 3 to 4 days once you've been exposed before it even makes sense to go get tested, because the test won't detect it because it isn't in your system yet, right? Now you've got Hope Hicks, who is the person who's been tested positive. Well, if Trump got it from her, then that occurred 3 or 4 days ago, right? So he may have been asymptomatic, but contagious as well. The way that they're like, we know that they were apart on the stage, but a lot of times the two of them were arguing back and forth with one another. And if there's yelling going on, which I hear there was,
There was, yes.
then it's very conceivable that, because neither man was wearing a mask for the majority of the time, that he could have infected Biden too. They're both in their 70s, right?
Yeah, and I
we
think
know that as people get older, they're more susceptible to it. That's why the numbers are as bad as they are, because the majority of deaths, at least early on, happened in like seniors' homes and facilities where the people were locked in there, and the staff weren't trained to help them, right? So this is a big deal, right? You might end up that Howie Hawkins wins because he's the only candidate that's still alive.
Could you imagine? I mean, this scenario right now is like a novel. I want to say a John Grisham novel, but maybe I don't know. So you're right, Andy. And when you go back and read about Hope Hicks and the debate, you saw that everybody was commenting that folks were wearing their masks and they were trying to do with their social distancing. But when the Trump attaché came in, they weren't wearing any masks. So we know that from masks are not foolproof. They lower your risk. So if I'm wearing a mask and Andy's not, and we're in the same room, if Andy wears a mask and I wear a mask, now we're both protected somewhat to the risk. But when you're sitting in a small auditorium like they were, all bets are off. I could have been wearing a mask for hours, but then the Trump admin walks in and there's 30 of them. None of them are wearing masks. Damn it, camera. It is nullified because now I am exposed because of these however many people walked in. I'm guessing at 30.
Exactly. Well, look at what Nurse Deb had to go through at the beginning, right? Because of the dangers. And when she's working in the OR, when they were intubating patients, right? Intubate or extubating, all people that were involved in the surgery but weren't involved in the intubation or extubation had to leave the room, right? They had to leave the operating theater and then wait half an hour for any of the water droplets in the air to settle down to the floor, right? And these are people that at that time were wearing an N95 mask, a surgical mask over top of it, and then a face shield in front of that as well, right? But it was still deemed too dangerous for them to be in that room, even with all of those masks. And it's known that the N95 mask will block out the coronavirus because of the size of it, like in microns. I forget what the numbers are, but it's pretty much foolproof when it comes to blocking that out. And they still wouldn't let them in the room.
Right.
So you're talking about, there's a very good possibility that we could that both candidates, a month before a general election, cannot go out and rally the troops because they have to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. And not just quarantine for 2 weeks, but if you don't show symptoms for a couple of days and then suddenly you do, your clock starts over again.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
or it's supposed to. It does for the rest of us. I don't know if you're running for president. Maybe the rules don't apply to you. Just a guess. But the happy news in all of this. But wait, there's more happy news. So when we were talking about all of these questions that come up, it causes people to be a little angsty, a little panicky, what could happen. And especially we saw this during the debate where Trump is calling out to white supremacists and all of these Proud Boys and everything else and whatever. Okay, so everybody calm down just a little bit. In all of this, in all of the worst case scenarios, in everything that we're going through right now, there is one group that holds the ultimate authority and power. And that group doesn't know it. That's you. And I want to give you 2 examples so that you start to understand it. And I keep thinking about Disney movies, and there was the movie Ants, the original. It was so cute, the little movie with the ants, and that whole movie was about the little guy recognizing that together we are unstoppable and we can defeat any foe that comes against us. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a lighthearted look at it. But the first example that I want to get to is something that happened in Philadelphia, and this is amazing. But this was just a really small group by comparison. So you had these moms and their children camped out in a public space in Philadelphia that owned vacant housing property. So when the city owns it, the city is us, right? Charities handle it. That's us they're talking about. We are the government. We are the charities. So it's not some other entity, it's us. So these moms and their children were asking the city to open up these properties that the city, they themselves, owned so that they could use it for housing. Winter's coming. This is Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. It's cold. Why? We've asked this question for so many years about homeless veterans and everything else. We have vacant housing. We have public space. We have public land. Why aren't we selling that property off for private enterprise? And so that's what these moms were doing. And the people in Philadelphia rallied around with them. So these are the Black Lives Matter and the women's reproductive rights. So you had kind of this coalition going, yeah, you know what, this isn't right. And they won. They won so far. So yeah, I'm going to put a caveat on that. But this shows you that a common sense, practical idea that is supported by a broad coalition, and it doesn't have to be numbers wise. It can be a broad coalition of organizations who are working together on a central issue can prevail. Now here's the caveat, because I am a cynic and I've seen this happen. Now that this has hit the paper and it's become public news that the Philadelphia city is kind of bowing and making amends to this. If
Caving, they're caving.
Oh, okay. If they're caving, so
Yes, they better watch out for black lung.
Right. So what will happen or can happen is everybody stands down and says, "Yay, we won!" and they take a victory lap. And then there are some nefarious groups or entities within the decision-making process that will reverse course. So you cannot stop just because it looks like you've got a victory. You wait until these families have keys in hand and then watch them and give them a way that if something happens, like there's an eviction process, like we talked about on Wednesday, if the city decides to cut off water and then use that as an excuse to evict them, give them a lifeline to contact these groups and be willing to come back together. That's what has to happen. You are your neighbor's keeper. So far it looks like they are making headway, and this could be a victory. And it didn't take a whole lot of people to make this happen. Okay, so that's the first example. The other example that I think is really important, we posted this on our Facebook page. This is from, you know what, just whatever. Nobody cares what I look like.
I'll put my picture up.
There you go. Thank you, Andy. Mr. Lackey, George Lackey, who is an author, who talks about coups, how just regular folks, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandmas, can stop a coup and have stopped coups in foreign countries and in others. So we put the entire link in the chat to the full interview. It's also on our Facebook page, but there's one little excerpt. This is about 2 minutes long that I want to play right now.
Question this article ultimately asks. Talk about how people can mobilize and organize to prepare for what increasingly seems as the inevitable path this country is headed.
A political scientist named Stephen Zunis did a careful research job with 12 coup attempts, 8 of which were defeated by the people. In order to find out, in those efforts that were successful in defeating the coup, what worked. And he came up with 4 ingredients for a successful defeat of a coup. Number 1 was widespread participation. It doesn't work if only a small part of the population erupts, right? It needs to be a large one. The second was alliance building, and especially alliance building toward the center. That is, if it's only the radicals or the extreme progressives who act, it's not likely to work. However, if there are alliances with the center can actually make the difference in defeating a coup. And then in the third ingredient that he found very important was that there be a discipline of nonviolence. That is, even though there's bound to be a certain amount of acting out by people who believe in using violence as a protest, if the preponderance of the movement is nonviolent, that seems to make a difference. And then finally, if the people who are initiators don't support negotiation with the coup plotters, but instead flat out refuse to accept the orders of or go along with the illegitimate authority. In this case, it's presumably Trump. If they flat out refuse, that seems to make a difference as well. And so you've got those 4 ingredients. All of those we're capable of doing. I'm happy to announce part
violence to things instead of people, right? Which we determined it's not violence if you destroy something, right? But so there's that, right? And you've also, sorry.
we both got the COVID.
We both got the COVID. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
It's better if I do this.
Right. So no, but I think you're making a valid point. We got to look out for each other and set ego aside, set our personal goals aside for a bigger issue, and that's how we prevail. So even if, let's say, Trump recovers, he's fine, and he engages the Proud Boys and these militias, and they are literally trying to start a coup, and then military does nothing. Well, it's up to us, right? So real simply, this is the easiest way.
Well, the other thing that I took away from that before I started to choke was that he talks also about getting a more wide range of people to buy into it, right? And the problem is, and he described this, if you're this extreme progressives, which I kind of had a problem with, because if you're going to label progressives extreme, right, then you're looking at them as a fringe, where that's incorrect. You should look at progressives as being a large group, a huge group in the United States. But if you're talking about getting, more centrist leaning Democrats and progressives together to push forward, the problem is, what do you get them to agree on, right? We can't agree on Medicare for all. They can't agree on elimination of student debt or the Green New Deal. Basically, their whole platform has been to get rid of Trump, then go to brunch. And so there's no cohesive thing that you can look at to say, okay, well, we can all agree on this, right? That's the problem, right? You've got the lefts, or the people that identify themselves as left-leaning, can't get together on that, and they're fighting one another instead of fighting the GOP, which is just corrupt and evil.
Yeah, but in this situation, let's say that Trump does. Way to go, Zoom. If he is successful in attempting a slow, lazy coup, all it would take, and that's a unified kind of issue, so it doesn't matter where you fall on these specific policies, we would all kind of go, yeah, that's not okay. General strike. That's it.
Well, sure, and people have proposed that for years, right? They've said that, but the problem is that the left doesn't speak with a single voice, right? We've seen that over and over again, right? The reason why we're at this moment in time where there's so much outrage and frustration on the left side of the spectrum is because everybody kind of woke up at the same time because of Bernie Sanders, right? Despite the fact that you think he's a traitor now. But he's the one that started this movement. He's the one that gave progressives a voice. But he's constrained because he's a senator, right? He's not an activist. And there's only so much you can do, right, starting at the top. And so the problem is, if you're looking for someone to kind of steer the ship now, well, we don't have any of the power. We don't have any of the media per se, right? Because we're basically, the left is preaching to the choir on social media. And so it just doesn't afford us to all get together and with a unified voice. We've got a lot of smaller voices trying to shout out above everybody else, and it ends up just being noise.
Well, okay, so then we go back to reflections on Occupy, right? So Occupy didn't have a singular point of contact, and that is what the oligarchs were complaining about. Who do we negotiate with? Well, to his point, you don't negotiate. So not having a central person with any even perceived authority might be a good thing, right? So if we are opposed to a coup and we just stop working, yeah, then you're done. You don't really need a central point. Like, you couldn't trot out a Bernie Sanders or an AOC and say, okay, everybody get back to work, it's fine. Because it wouldn't happen. We would have to have free and fair elections. Maybe then we would get ranked choice voting or something like that. But if we have a situation where Trump refuses to leave office because of whatever excuse he comes up with, we really wouldn't need somebody out there to speak for us, like a Sean King or whatever else. And I think it's interesting when you contemplate the whole idea of needing a central person. Isn't this why we have kind of that cancel? Like, how many times was Sean King canceled, right?
Yeah, so of course.
Right. So I wonder if that is part of that manufactured consent, that if you see somebody like a Susan Sarandon, now we got to cancel her or something like that. So I wonder if that's part of that. It's a sign. It's a sign.
A hostile takeover of your camera.
That's exactly right. Well, I keep getting a message that Zoom doesn't recognize your camera, so maybe all the little students need to have their bandwidth. So let's wrap it up here.
Okay.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Andy. What are you thinking?
Oh.
It's okay.
I'm on top of it. I'm going to go back to where I started and say it would be sad that the Steelers game this week is supposed to be against, I think it's Tennessee, and 3 of their players have tested positive for COVID, so their game is canceled this weekend. So I don't even get that now.
No, but you can, do you still have, like, do you remember those old metal football games? What were they called? Where it had the magnets in it and you turn it on, the little men went, zzz. I would replay the game that way.
Well, no.
That's why the
Nice
reason
try, though.
I'm not so sympathetic. I mean, I am for the COVID aspect of it, but my team, Denver, is, what the hell?
Well, that's it, right? Like, if it happened to Denver's opponent this week,
Yeah.
they'd be guaranteed they wouldn't lose.
Ouch. Ouch. That one hurts. But thank you. Thank you,
Oh,
Andy,
you're
for
welcome.
that one. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Okay. So thank you, everyone, for bearing with us today. This has been kind of a technical shit show, but it's whatever. It's Friday.
Sunspots.
Yeah, a little bit. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I think we'll be back Monday. I may be remote, and Andy's running everything, so I can just totally blame everything on Andy, and it'll be great. I'm so excited.
Sure. Absolutely.
So
The first half of the show will be highlights.
the Steelers game, whatever. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. So my final thought is, if you did request a mail-in ballot and you've got it, fill it out, mail it back, get it done. If you've got early voting in your state, go vote. If you are going to vote in person, put your mask on, put your gloves on, keep everybody safe. Don't be intimidated by anybody. It's illegal for them to. That's it. Just make sure you go vote, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Everybody, have a good weekend.
I'm going to get you a mask for your icon.
Yeah, put a mask. This is a smiley face, little mask. Sounds good. All right. I'll talk to everybody on Monday.
Remember the dark, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the facts, how it's supposed to be. Remember the dark, we keeping it G. Whoa.